Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Before They Knew Better, the podcast from DIY Magazine. I am, as always, Lisa Wright. This is my co-host and producer, Giles Bidder.
Hello.
And bringing us into the second half of the first season is the wonderful mxmtoon. mxmtoon has just released Plum Blossom Revisited. It is a reworking of her debut EP, which she recorded when she was a mere teenager. She has gone back, given those songs a little bit of a massage. She's changed some lyrics. She's given them a polish. She's given them a revisit through the eyes of her 23-year-old self, which has put her in, I would say, probably exactly the right nostalgic mindset for a conversation such as this. As ever on Before They Knew Better, we asked Maya to bring in one song, one photo, and one object from her childhood. And we're saying childhood with this one because, you know, she's still young. But we talked about her very young childhood and the early teenage days of the mxmtoon project. And she was a delight. She was fab. Go listen to Plum Blossom Revisited if you are lucky enough to have snapped up some of the tickets for her December Christmas run. Then you are a very lucky listener indeed. And otherwise, go and listen back to some of the other episodes of Before They Knew Better. We've already had 6 crackers. Last week we had Killer Mike, Actual Killer Mike. Before that we have had Sigrid, we've had Olivia Dean, Mae Muller, Bastille, Felix White, legends one and all. Go back and give them a listen. We have got more episodes to come on this first run of Before They Knew Better. Subscribe and then you can get them straight to your inbox as they land on a fresh hot Tuesday morning. This is episode 7 of Before They Knew Better with DIY Magazine and mxmtoon. A, thank you for joining us on this. B, it's actually, obviously, Before They Knew Better is a podcast about being young. And even though your young years aren't really that much in the rearview mirror, I feel like the fact that you've just released a rework EP that is sort of revisiting stuff from that teenage time and giving it a bit of a sort of early to mid-20s spruce up feels quite relevant to what we're doing now. I mean, are you on quite a nostalgia tip at the moment?
I'm always on a nostalgia tip. I think as a person, I just continuously look in the past. It's so fun. I'm just always in my photo album looking at things and being like, oh, that was so nice. What a great time. And it was like 1 week ago. So I think I just, as a person, gravitate towards that naturally. So I'm excited to be here and chat with you guys.
Excellent. Fuck living in the present.
Yeah, exactly.
Just always look back.
Yeah.
How was that? Because I mean, I feel like 5 years in the space of 18 to 23, and I'm guessing a lot of those songs were written before that as well. Did it feel like looking back at a sort of whole different person?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely. I feel like that period of your life specifically, going from being like 17 years old to then being 23, there's so much change that happens specifically in that window of time, I think. And so, you know, my first thought when I was thinking about revisiting was like, okay, yeah, 5 years isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. But if I really think about it, that's a lot of time, at least in my lifetime so far, that I've spent working on music and releasing songs and, you know, connecting with community. So it took me a second where I was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do that. And then I realized I was like, no, actually, I am a very different person and I have a lot of different tools at my disposal now. And I definitely want to approach doing that. But, you know, I cringed a lot looking at the 16-year-old version of myself that I was looking back on because she was super cringy, but also like, how cute that she was just making songs in her bedroom. And thank God she did, because now I have a job. So shout out to her.
Exactly. Shout out to past you. And I mean, God, like everyone's cringy. Like if you say that you're not cringy at 16, then I feel like you were doing 16 wrong.
Exactly. That's true. I can live with no regrets, which is a great feeling. Yeah.
Excellent. What was the when you're saying about cringe, like, was there anything that stands out that you were like, oh God?
I mean, besides some of the music that I was writing, my very first song ever being a song, like the first original song I ever released online was literally, and it's one of the songs on the Revisited EP, but it was literally just me complaining about being single. But I'm like, you were 16. Like, of course no one's going to date. You're 16. Like you don't need to have that life experience at that point. But I remember writing it and being like, yeah, this is so real when I was 16 years old. And then I listened back to it at 23 and I'm like, it wasn't that deep, girl. Like, it's okay. You can chill, go do your homework or whatever you need to do right now in your life. But that was definitely one of those moments. Beyond that, I was a theater kid. If that's pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. So all my hobbies and activities I was a nerd. I still am. Proudly so.
Yeah, but God bless the nerds. I mean, I love that even at 16, you're just like, I really have got to lock a partner down. Like, there is a pathway that is set out, and I got to crack on with this search. Can you remember, like, was that around a time when you were, I don't know, was it just that all your mates around you were starting to sort of get those first teenage, like, serious boyfriends and girlfriends?
I think so. It definitely was that feeling of pressure that my peers were just like so much farther ahead of me. But also, I think when you're in high school, you just feel like whatever happens in high school is the rest of your life. And like, I remember watching friends get into relationships and they're like, you know, they say they're so in love and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, dang, should I be feeling that? Should I be experiencing that right now? And ultimately, no, I didn't need to be. But it felt like I did at that moment. It felt like a lot of pressure to like catch up.
Yeah,
in some respects.
it's like that huge sort of when everyone's like reaching milestones and everyone's talking about milestones. You know, you have like a sleepover or a thing like that, and everyone's talking about, like, I still to this day can't really work out what base is what. Like, I feel like that's something that seemed to change definition depending on which group of people you're talking to. It's like, which bit is smiling nicely at each other? Is that first base? There's like a huge pressure, I think, when you're young and everyone is around you saying like, oh, you know, people are doing those things first, and you're just like, God, I've got to catch up with this thing. Otherwise, like, I must be an alien person. Like, clearly I've got 3 heads because Sally's held hands with her boyfriend and I haven't held hands with anyone yet. I think it's a really, like, it's quite a overwhelming time of life.
Totally. It's so much like, I mean, your world is also so small at that point. Your only frame of reference is just like this tiny community of people that are going to be in vastly different places of your life. I know the school that I went to was only 400 kids, and I had friends who would go to even smaller schools. And so their perception of like their community is so, so small. And so by nature, I think you're just like in this high pressure environment to try and be in the same place as every other person that you're seeing on a daily basis. It's so much pressure for teenagers. Yeah,
for sure.
There's that thing that happens at school that if you're the nerd or you're the theater kid or you're the grebo or you're a goth or you're the punk, that kind of self-identity is so strong.
It's crazy. And then you break out of it and you become an adult and you realize it all comes out in a wash.
Doesn't matter. Did you have a high school book? Did you have like an end of high school?
Oh yeah, like a yearbook.
Oh yes. I still look back on them. I love looking at yearbooks. I think they're so much fun. What a crazy time capsule of like a really small moment of your life. Yeah.
What was your entry?
Oh, my entry is...
Anyone write something about you?
Is that
or did you write something about yourself?
Oh.
Yeah, in American ones, don't they have the like, you know, most likely to do such and such?
They do. I think at my school, they reached a point where they were like, that's adding a lot of added pressure on these students to then achieve whatever it is that you are telling them they're going to do. Ironically, we did end up doing it anyways amongst all of the peers. Like people just did it, a voting thing anyways with the students. And I was most likely to get famous. So that, yeah.
Here we go.
I appreciate the vote of confidence that everybody gave me, because without that, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
That's funny. Why would people have thought that about you? Were you putting yourself out there then, making creative endeavors?
I was not really at school, but I was already active online with mxmtoon and posting music. And there was a point where I got like put on a Snapchat story, and against my will, my entire school found out about everything that I was doing online at that point. And I think for them, that was their perception of me suddenly shifted from like, oh, she's that quiet people pleaser student, A+ student, to, oh, she makes songs on a ukulele and posts them on YouTube. she's gonna be famous, guys. She's gonna be famous. So I think that was the transition point.
Was that like when you sort of got rumbled? Was that a good thing for your kind of school cred, or was it like, oh my God, my secret's out?
It was so bad. I think it was, in retrospect, it probably wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but I felt like everybody was looking at me. Like you said, when I had 3 heads, it was this weird, like world shattering moment where I was like, okay, my online personality that I portray is now just not solely delegated to that one area. It bleeds into like everything that I'm doing. And the school that I went to specifically, my parents used to work at it. So I knew a lot of the teachers and staff because they were my aunts and uncles growing up in some like weird way. And so not only like did my peers know about it, but these like adults in the community also knew. And so my parents then found out, and it was like this, it felt like a bunch of dominoes just toppling over finally after trying so hard to keep them standing upright, but I couldn't do it. Yeah.
Because making music is inherently kind of rebellious, even if it is ukulele songs online.
It is. And it was the most rebellious thing that I had ever done. I was a very good kid, textbook good kid, didn't do anything except my homework, my extracurriculars, whatever it was. And my parents were both teachers growing up. And so they preached this idea of internet safety. And every time they would talk to their school communities about what it means to be safe online, they'd be like, well, with my children, we check their internet presence and make sure they're not having a large digital footprint. Follow our lead. And then they found out that I had like actually the largest digital footprint any student has ever had, period, the end. And they couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Oh God. I mean, yeah, I would say in terms of rebellion, it's a very, very modern form of rebellion.
It is. It totally
like, is. Hey guys, I've actually got like loads of social media accounts, so psych. I mean, like, even so with that though, like, were you doing it? Was it like very much a kind of, okay, I'm doing this in secret. Like I've got this little, the outside world is a bit scary. Whereas like, did it feel like a sort of safe space for you?
Definitely. I think, I felt sometimes I think a little stifled by the expectations that I felt like other people were placing upon me to like do a really good job at XYZ. And so the internet was this place where all of that could be stripped away and I could be whoever I wanted to be. And that was a musician and a gamer. And, I could, connect with other people based off of those interests rather than feeling like I don't even want to share that side of myself with my school community or my family. So I think that's the case for a lot of people, and why a lot of people gravitate towards the internet in the first place is just because all of everything that you know in your immediate life doesn't exist in the same way the moment you step online into like social media spaces or whatever. You can just be whoever you want to be. And that was really appealing to me, especially growing up and wanting a greater sense of community, I think, in peers. Mm-hmm. I started gaming from a very young age. That is one thing my parents let me do. I gamed like crazy starting from the ages of 6. I was on Battlefield talking with fully grown adults over comms at the prime age of 6 years old. But the internet, I think it was the restrictions that were placed upon me growing up of not having that digital footprint. Instead, kids are not going to listen to that. Kids are going to listen to you say that they can't do something and find a sneakier way to do that, plus a million other things. And so I took it upon myself to be like, well, I'm allowed to have Instagram, but I'm not allowed to have Snapchat. So I'm going to have Snapchat, and I'm going to have Vine, and I'm going to have YouTube, and I'm going to have Facebook, and I'm going to have all these other places to post. And I think, it was just this, it was like an exhilarating feeling to be like, I'm posting online. I'm not supposed to be doing this, but it was so much fun. Yeah.
And Snapchat, the ideal medium to have a secret thing in, because unless they are very, very quick at following you, then that shit disappears. Really? What is it? After a day? After an hour? I can't even remember what it is.
I think it's like even minutes. I don't remember how it works anymore. I've matured past Snapchat at this point in my life.
Okay. Have you deleted loads of your accounts now, or is there still lots of evidence of like childhood Maya and the things that she would post?
There's less evidence, thank God. I think there's a moment now, actually, though, I kind of wish that there was more, but I think I became more sentient when I was like 19 years old. I looked back on a lot of the things that I was making and I was like, oh, this is so cringy. And then I freaked out and deleted a bunch of it. So I got rid of a bunch of things. But now I'm kind of like, oh, I wish that I could watch that, because that's the funniest stuff, is just like watching your younger self make stupid stuff online. Nothing tops that. I love seeing those things. Yeah.
We have asked you to bring in a photo, an object, and a song choice from various different parts of these times that we've been talking about. And I feel like, and I can't say for sure which chronological order it's coming in, but having looked at these things, I am going to say I don't even know how to describe. How would you describe your object?
My object is like I have it with me right here, actually. It's a stuffed animal of one of my favorite characters, Totoro, from the Studio Ghibli movie.
It's him.
Right. And he can come out of this like little wooden stump. And he holds a little leaf over his head and he's very cute. But this is actually the most recent out of the things that I sent over to you guys, surprisingly. God. But no, I mean, how would you know? How would you know? I can go backwards. We can do that.
No, this is great. We'll go reverse. Chronology. When did he appear in your life?
He appeared in my life in... Totoro, I think, uses he, him pronouns. Not sure, though. No idea.
Sure.
I think that's kosher, though. So I got him in 2018, and it was a gift from my aunt after I played my very first live show ever. And it was probably the worst show I've ever played, but hey, everyone's first show is probably the worst show they've ever played. But I played it in Los Angeles, and it was a opening set for one of my friends, and my whole family came because it was the first time that they knew that I did music, and my mom literally ran merch for me that night. It was really sweet. But cute. My aunt brought me this little tiny Totoro as like a gift. And a congratulations for playing my very first show. And I've kept him ever since. And so much so that he's been in so many things that other people have brought me Totoro memorabilia as I've played more shows throughout my life, which is very exciting to me as a huge fan. Yeah.
What's Totoro's background? What's Totoro's origin story?
It's unclear. If you've watched the movie, it's kind of like he's this big, fluffy rabbit guy who can sprout trees. And if I keep explaining, I will sound like a crazy woman. But if you have not watched My Neighbor Totoro, you should definitely go and check it out. It's like one of my all-time favorite comfort movies, and I watch it when I'm on tour all the time. Yeah.
Nice. Are you a big... It's Ghibli, right? Everyone says Ghibli, but it's meant to be pronounced Ghibli.
I think it's Ghibli. I grew up saying Ghibli though, so I'm readjusting. But Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Studio Ghibli.
Are you a big fan of that style in general?
I'm a huge fan. That was kind of like, I did not grow up watching Disney movies, and so for me, this was my equivalent of like animated movie content that I love to watch. And so Totoro is a big one. I'm even getting another Studio Ghibli tattoo next week. So I'm dedicated to the craft. Yeah.
How many have you got already? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have one right now, but I'm going to get 2 on Monday. So slowly adding to the collection. Yeah.
Okay.
2 in different together or different parts?
Different parts. They're from different movies. But yeah, I think maybe I could put them right next to each other, and so they can be friends on my body forever. Yeah.
When you get tattoos, when I go and get a tattoo, I don't really know exactly where I'm going to get it. I know roughly, I've got a lot on my right leg right now.
Nice.
And I'm excited now about having a bit of a leg sleeve, if you can call it that.
Ooh, what's your
trouser? A trouser.
It cuts off like right above the knee on both legs too, so it does look like pants. I feel like that would be a really cool look.
Yeah. Tattoo shorts. Everyone talks about sleeves, but nobody talks about tattoo shorts.
Shorts.
Why isn't that a thing?
I don't know. Maybe we should start it. We'll work on it.
Hashtag tattoo shorts forever. Yeah,
Oh
great.
God.
How many tattoos? I mean, I can see now you've got one arm that's pretty.
I have
both,
quite a few. I am also working on a leg sleeve actually. But yeah, no, I have quite a lot, but they're mostly flowers at this point, and I'm trying to up my nerdy tattoo game currently. So adding to the collection of small, cute characters that I can look at on my body and be like, I like you. That's so fun. You'll be with me until I die. So, yeah.
Love it. So that was the first show ever, which was when you were 7. Does that make you 17 at that?
I think I was 17. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Describe to me the day, the nerves, the feelings. How did it all go down?
I've never been more nervous in my entire life. It felt like it was such a high stakes environment because I again had never played a show before. And so it felt silly to be like, I'm playing a show and then try and go into this physical space after I've only done things online the entire time I've been making music and just kind of cross my fingers and hope that people were going to actually show up to this thing. And I was so lucky because people did. And I was so lucky that people stayed because I did not know my lyrics as I was sitting on stage trying to sing them to people. But it was only like 30 minutes of singing. And I remember my grandparents were there. It was just this big moment where it felt like everything in my life that had been so separate for so long, when I started posting on social media and then, had its different school community and my family didn't know about it. And then all of a sudden everybody did. It felt like this culminating moment where all of those pieces and places got to intersect with each other for the very first time. And I could kind of figure out what my life was going to look like with this additional piece of making music and performing. But yeah, no, I was so nervous. I think I just felt like barfing the entire day. But I made it through and I've played more shows since then. Yeah.
If you already had sort of an online fan base, community, like however you kind of want to describe it, does that mean that even on those first shows there was like, oh, okay, I've got people that know, like, that have been waiting for this. And there's a bit more kind of, because that's, I guess most people who start without having that online thing, you can pretty much get away to playing to like 2 people and their dog for a really long time on a toilet circuit before anyone has any clue of who you are. But maybe this is a different way to sort of hard launch yourself into the live arena.
It definitely was different. I think, I knew that I had an audience online, whether it was from like SoundCloud or YouTube, but the room we played, I think it was like 150 cap or something. And so I was just not convinced that anyone was going to show up in the first place. And so I brought a bunch of my family as a buffer to make sure that there'd be bodies in the room when I was on stage singing. We got the news for that show specifically, like about, I think the day before the show was supposed to happen, all the tickets sold out. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, okay, that means that I will be playing to a number of people. Somehow that's worse than feeling like I'm going to a room with just my family and I get to just sing songs. But it was really cool to all of a sudden have this proof that, I think when you're looking at numbers on a screen, it's really easy to detach yourself from the fact that those are real people and like people that will show up to these sorts of things and support you and to respond to comments. And I think that was one of the first times where it really clicked with me, where I was like, wow, this is actually happening.
You exist.
Yeah, I exist. I'm perceived. Yes.
Did you always want to play live? Because you could, in theory, have an existing career, job, sustainable playing music model without going on tour.
Totally. I think there were moments where I definitely on the day of the show, I was like, I'm never going to do this again. This is the worst feeling in the world. The anticipation was so awful. But then I think being on stage, and I feel so lucky I still have clips from that show of listening to this new group of people. The first time I'd ever heard anybody sing a song that I had written back to me, it was the most beautiful thing I think I'd ever experienced. And so just, I think as someone who found the internet originally as this place where I viewed it as this like black hole where I could sink any thought and piece of art that I was creating and throw it into a void and no one would shout back to me. To have that reminder that no, people did find the things that I was posting online and people did care about the things that I was posting online. so much so they showed up to this room and they listened to the things that I was creating and learned it and sang it back to me. I think in that moment, I realized, like, because before then, I'd barely gone to any concerts. I didn't really know that much about the live space. I think it cemented in me having that experience that I wanted to get better at it and wanted to keep showing up and doing my best to have more moments like that. But yeah, it was really cool. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's quite wild having like people sing back to you on your first ever show.
It was crazy. I was fully expecting them to stand there and roll their eyes while they stood on their phones. So I'm really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess even the phone thing, that's quite if you're an online person, then maybe it's like, oh, okay. Then maybe they're just going to be just like doing that while I'm singing. So,
yeah, I don't know. I had no idea.
That's, yeah, I mean, like, what an encouraging thing to have immediately sort of been birthed into. You're saying, like, if you hadn't been to many shows yourself, like, how did you sort of approach, like, how you were going to be on stage? Was there an idea of like, I'm going to do some stage chat, I'm going to rehearse the things, I want to be this sort of performer? Had you thought about it before?
Had not thought about it. The only previous experience that I had was doing like talent shows, or I was a part of an a cappella group in high school, and that was kind of the closest thing, but in large part had only been doing like ensemble things. So a lot of my performance that I was familiar with was having also other people on stage. And I think that slightly did inform the way that I was in my live show, because I think by nature of not having someone else on stage with me, I have continued to utilize crowds and audiences as the like second party of the piece of the show. Like, I think all of my audiences still are as much involved in my live set as I am, because I rely on their remarks and their like quips to bounce back and forth on. And I think for me, the banter was definitely really, I was like, I kept hearing about how, you know, you need stage banter, but I didn't know what that meant because I'd never really seen a show before. And I just remember like really freaking out about that. I think that I even had a bit on stage where I was like, what am I even supposed to say up here? And then like I would just have conversations back and forth with someone standing in the audience.
Great. That's so pure.
I know. Yeah. I was like,
learn a couple of knock jokes in advance.
Exactly. Just Google some like jokes on my phone while I'm up there. Actually, I might do that. I might do that next show. Who knows?
I would prefer to see someone on stage doing that than doing some kind of semi-pre-scripted, I think I should do this type of behavior.
I 100% agree with you. And I think that's turned into my favorite thing that I do at shows. I love singing, but I'm going to be honest, I kind of treat my sets as like a bit of a stand-up comedian act a little bit.
Love it. Hell yeah.
Is this preceding a pivot? Would you ever do stand-up?
I don't know. I love making people laugh. I think that's just true to anything that I do. I don't know if I'd ever do stand-up. That sounds a little too vulnerable. I do love having the fact that I can have a script of just singing a song in between things to kind of let my brain take a break. But I don't know. Maybe if I wrote a type 5.
Playing music and comedy, you know, Chaz and Dave.
Yes.
They existed. They exist. There is some comedy and music crossover there that
very much.
I'm just saying, it's untapped.
It's true.
It's a choice.
No,
it's a choice.
It's like the Venn diagram for making songs and like being funny. It's so close to being just a singular circle, but yet there's like a little bit of separation. I don't know. Maybe I'll get into it more later. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love it if there. I mean, also if on your next record you were like, actually, my main influence is Chaz and Dave. That would be a real curveball for people.
Huge pivot,
Rabbit.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized what you gotta do.
The song that you have brought in for us is the most classic of all classics, Oasis. Wonderwall, the big one. I mean, like, I feel like Wonderwall now has got such a reputation of being the song that people sing, like the guy at the party that everyone's like, oh God, like he's got the, anyway, here's Wonderwall. But I mean, great. Like, the reason that it got to that stage is because it's a classic. Tell us about your relationship with that song.
So I do find it hilarious because the first two songs that I ever learned on instruments or singing are now two of the biggest memes, potentially, Wonderwall being one of them. That was the very first song I ever learned on guitar. And the very first song I ever learned on ukulele was, of course, Riptide by Vance Joy. But Oasis's Wonderwall was important to me because that was kind of my introduction to singing for the very first time. My dad taught me how to play guitar when I was around like 10 years old. And the first song he played with me was Wonderwall. And so I learned how to sing it at home. And I had grown up playing cello. And so I switched schools when I was 10 years old, and they had a rock band for the very first time. And I heard that they were playing Wonderwall in the rock band, and I needed to make friends. And so I thought that I would audition. But I didn't audition for singing. I auditioned to play cello for the rock band, specifically for Wonderwall.
Yes.
And of course the director was like, yeah, so we don't actually need that, but we do need a vocalist. Do you know how to sing the song? And I was like, well, yeah, I've been singing it at home with my dad. And so that was the first song that I ever sang with my dad in a band, in front of people on a stage. So yeah, just the beginning of my entire singing journey. Thank you, Oasis. Yeah.
Are you describing the plot of School of Rock 2?
It's actually it's autobiographical, School of Rock. That's pretty much, it's just about my life. I'm Jack Black, actually. Yeah.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Love that film. What a wasted opportunity not to have a cello version of Wonderwall, though.
That's what I'm saying. I think at one point,
good?
I mean, it's on the actual version of the song, I'm fairly certain, because I remember...
Yeah, it got strings, right?
Yeah, it has strings. And so I remember listening and being like, surely they can use this. Surely I, as a 10-year-old, can offer my services as a cellist to play Wonderwall. And I think I even offered to sing and play cello at one point. But now I've forgotten a lot of my cello knowledge. So, you know what? It's okay. Singing clearly worked out.
That was a
better.
beautiful era. I didn't think that Oasis had really sort of... Like they're one of the famous British bands that are huge over here, and I didn't think had really sort of connected that well in America. So that surprises me, perhaps, that was the song that you were learning your craft to. Were they just like a big band in your house?
They were a big band in my house. I actually realized growing up that I mostly listened to English artists, weirdly enough. Like, I recently made this like long playlist of a lot of the songs that I listened to in the kitchen or in the house growing up. And a lot of it is just English people. And even in the rock band that I was a part of, we mostly sang like British rock songs. And so I think that was kind of my introduction to music largely too. So a lot of my like early formulation of my taste, it was Brits. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Rock and roll star. What else was on the playlist that you made? Is that like a playlist that people can listen to? Or is this just for you?
I think maybe I could share it. It's called White British People Bangers. And it's just... it's of course Tears for Fears, Blondie's on it, The Cure. It's a lot of like just very popular songs, at least to me. Yeah.
That's really funny. 7 likes, 44 songs. This is a peek behind the curtain. Yeah. This is awesome. Duran, talk.
Yeah.
Oh, Duran, man. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So great.
Bananarama.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very
I mean,
cool.
that's all sort of like a lot of 80s stuff, a lot of stuff from sort of before you were born. Was that kind of coming from your parents, or was that digging back kind of through like Spotify playlists, or how did you kind of get into that? It was
definitely from my parents. Yeah, I think my dad actually did such a good job with like helping me broaden my perspective of what music could sound like. I listened to a lot of genres growing up. My grandparents were really into classical and jazz, and so from them I got kind of an introduction to that genre or those genres. And my dad would listen to a lot of R&B and rap and soul and rock music from my other grandpa, who was really into playing the guitar. So I think just from all of that, I just kind of soaked up everything. But I didn't really listen to the radio a lot growing up. And so a lot of my like introduction was just the CDs that my family had lying around the house. And a lot of it was music from the 80s and the 70s.
Was there a moment that you started digging for yourself, that you had that impetus to go to record shops or go online and actually, okay, what's the stuff that I don't know yet from my family?
Definitely. I think when I started joining that rock band and I had suddenly this opportunity to choose the songs alongside my bandmates of what we wanted to sing, I realized that I had really no understanding or taste of my own to decide that in the first place. And as one does when they're 13, I joined Tumblr. And from there, I was launched into the like alternative music world where I loved like Arctic Monkeys and the Black Keys. And so a lot of that music was what I loved growing up, especially in like my high school years, and listened to that all the time. Yeah.
I'm going to guess if that, because there was like that sort of time when the Black Keys were massive, and that was what, like when Arctic Monkeys had probably just done like AM or something, or maybe even just before
they had just done AM. I think AM was like my favorite album at the time. And the Black Keys was my very first concert. Those two bands I think are specifically like very instrumental to me.
That's a good first gig though, isn't it? Like that's like a credible first gig.
Thank you.
Aside from
thank you.
Would you ever do anything with Dan Auerbach? Is that how you pronounce his name?
I don't know.
Would you collaborate with him?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm usually down to work with anybody, especially people who I think make different types of music than what I'm familiar with making now. It's great to learn. I would love to. Yeah.
When you were talking about this rock band that you were in, was it like a proper sort of, you really went for it for a while? You played live, whether that was like at school or, in sort of clubs or whatever? Like how serious was this band?
It was, it was a school band and we were 12, so we couldn't play at clubs because we were 12. But 12, everything outside of that, we definitely did do live performances. So we would do like school performances and we had one night every year, I think, where they would get a venue and all the different school rock bands would play a set, which was really exciting to us. And it was. And that's
the point when
the
Jack
most
Black
fun ever.
Came and
exactly. You know the story. It goes from there on out. But it was a lot of fun, and that was like the first time I'd ever played shows. I think was that point.
What was the band called?
Lunchtime Rock Band A.
Catchy. It's catchy.
Yeah, really catchy. Really, really catchy.
Must have been so great to play with people. I mean, when you're playing in a room with other people and it works and it makes sense and it sounds good. What an elevating feeling.
It's the best feeling in the world. And until like 2 years ago when I started touring with the band for my shows, I hadn't had that experience with mxmtoon. And so now I love it. It's so much fun. I love doing acoustic shows, and it's so much fun to be able to bounce back and forth with an audience when you're like solo up on stage. But playing with a band, there's no other feeling. It's like you're breathing together. It's crazy. It's just so much fun to be in such a rhythm. Mm-hmm.
Did you recruit any of the members of Lunchtime Rock Band A for your current band?
I did not. I think they've all moved on to other things that don't involve music.
Get the band back together, I say.
We're getting the band back together.
So when you were doing that was like, was that the point when you started picking up a guitar rather than like cello and sort of classical instruments?
I basically did guitar when I was 11 years old, and then my school curriculum, we were required to take music, and so they switched to a ukulele because the guitar proved to be too difficult for preteens to wrap their minds around. Six strings, I guess, is just too much, so they moved to 4. And from there, I think that I transitioned from playing and learning guitar to then learning ukulele, and not until recently did I get a guitar actually and try and start learning again. But yeah, it was I wasn't playing either of those instruments for the rock band. I was just singing. And so there's all these videos of me growing up where I also just so stiff on stage singing these songs. 0 movement whatsoever, no swaying. Had the craziest side part too. My hair's just like raked over to one side and you can barely see half my face. But that was the vibe. It was not ukulele.
Oh my God, yeah, there's a generation of kids who are really, really poor-sighted in one eye, I think, and they have like alternative music to thank for that.
Hey, stop talking about me. I'm right here.
The scourge of opticians around the land was that period of mid-noughties indie. But like ukulele obviously has served you very, very well. So I feel like at the time, were you immediately into it as an instrument? Like, was it something that you were just like, oh, okay, this feels right to play?
I loved it. It was definitely so different than anything I had done previously because I had been trained classically on cello. So many rules and regulations to follow when you're playing a stringed instrument, specifically like cello. And I'd taken violin previously too. And so that was my only kind of understanding of playing and learning music was under those strict guidelines of how to play songs. And the ukulele was so different because you could literally just go on YouTube and learn one of your favorite songs in 10 minutes and be able to play it after that point. And it felt so liberating and fun for like the first time in a very long time. So I loved it. I really gravitated towards it. And I think it became this great thing too, where I could teach other people how to play the songs that I was writing. And it was very easily translatable to other people who wanted to learn how to play music.
In that sort of early Mumford and Sons sort of time, I feel like there was some ukuleles going on around there, and that was like a thing that kind of I hadn't heard in alternative music for a while, and it felt like that kind of was the beginning of the uke renaissance.
It must have been 21 Pilots, because I think that they kickstarted a large group of ukulele playing teenagers.
Noah and the Whale?
I love Noah and the Whale actually too. So, okay, yes, there was a couple people. Yeah, there is a couple.
Yeah. The holy trifecta, you, Noah, 21 Pilots. Make that collab happen.
2024 tour.
I feel like that's definitely the first time those three artist names have been mentioned in the same sentence.
But things have got to start somewhere. Do you ever think like, who was the first person that thought, if I combine these ingredients and put them in the oven, that's going to make a cake? Somebody's got to be the boundary pusher,
And that's you, Lisa.
This is inventive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Make that collab happen. So the final thing that you have brought in for us is a very cute photo of you how old are you saying that you are in this photo?
I think I was around 9 years old or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cute. Mm-hmm. And you are with a gentleman who, wait a minute, I'm going to get this photo up because is it Bill Nye? Okay. Well, I mean, it's not actually Bill Nye, but like
it is Bill Nye.
No, it is Bill Nye. There's a couple of Bill Nyes. It's not Bill Nye, the actor. It's Bill Nye, the science guy.
Yeah. That's Bill Nye.
Right. Okay. Because I was like, that's not Bill Nye. Like,
there's no way that
character that he played. Right.
Can you please, Maya, just tell us like the weeks leading up to this, the years leading up to this moment? What happened?
All right. So yes, it's a photo of me when I was 9 with Bill Nye, the science guy. And it was I don't remember exactly how I got involved with it. I think it was probably like a friend of the family or something. And there was a science museum in the city I grew up in that was running an exhibit called climate science. And they had hired Bill Nye to be a part of it because he's Bill Nye, the science guy. And they needed children to pose in a photo with him to be like the greeting image when you walk into the exhibit of like a cheery group of small children being like, we love learning, we love Bill Nye. And so they needed a small child and I qualified. And so my parents got the call from like a family friend. They were like, hey, can you show up to this set? Bill Nye's here and we need like kids to fill in this photo shoot. And so we showed up to the set, and he's just there. Bill Nye, the science guy, is just there. And my brother was also in like a short educational bit with him as well. And so we met Bill Nye, but I don't know why. My immediate urge was to like make a face standing next to him. I think that for some reason I just felt compelled. But I met Bill Nye and it's a crazy, crazy thing. I'm so glad I have that photo.
I'm going to show my ignorance here. Tell me about I feel like I do know who he is, but also
that's okay.
Evidently, there is a Nye-shaped gap in my knowledge. Who, what, where?
So Bill Nye, I mean, I guess it's like probably more of an American thing to like grow up watching his content and his explanations. But pretty much if you grew up in America and you needed a science topic explained to you, you would watch a video of Bill Nye explaining the topic, sat in your classroom, and he'd be on the TV or something.
Like Brian Cox or someone like that?
Yes. So
okay, right.
Bill Nye is our Brian Cox. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Was he a lovely like, can you remember?
He was so nice. I think he has to be, because if you're around children all the time, like you can't make a career out of being just mean to them constantly. So he was so nice.
There was plenty of bad.
That's true. That is true. Okay, yes. Thank God Bill Nye was sweet. So he was very nice. He was a very nice man.
So this picture is that we're looking at here. This is clearly BTS.
Yes.
Right? This is like,
yes. Yes.
Was there a legit? Did the photo happen with you that was then printed out and put in the entry?
It was. And I, to this day, can't find it. I had hoped that they would put it online somewhere, but I can't find it. And I think it's hilarious because the actual thing that they ended up printing out, they said it was going to be like this big poster that's greeting you. And then you walk into the exhibit and it's about 3 inches by 2 inches, it just is tiny. And I walked in and I was like, all that for this? I remember being 10 years old at that point and being so unimpressed by the display that I had worked so hard on. Really, I was like, this is my first job and this is how I get rewarded for it? Okay, sure.
If this is what showbiz is about, then I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I take this full circle?
Yes.
When I moved into the flat that I'm living in now 6 years ago, the first sort of thing I bought off Amazon to sort of grace the walls of it was what I thought a large A0, A2, seriously big Love Actually poster featuring Bill Nye.
Yes.
And it came and it was fucking A4. And I paid like £12 for it.
That's not even a poster. That's just
a similar small Bill Nye poster was.
What's up with that, Bill Nye? He's got some explaining to do, I would say.
Wait a minute. So it's still in a science museum in your hometown?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure if it is or not. I'm sure they've changed the exhibit out, but no, it was a really big deal. I remember like all of the local news was about how Bill Nye was involved in an exhibit at the local science museum. So maybe they haven't. Maybe I am immortalized in my 9-year-old self somewhere in a small photo at that museum. But
in Oakland, California.
Love it. Were you like the kid, if you were kind of a theatre school kid, does that mean that like whenever there were things like this, you would be the one that kind of got wheeled out to be like, Maya's up for it, like she's okay in front of a camera? Was that your role in the class?
I think at that point in my life, I'm going to be honest, I think I did have an ego where I was like, yeah, I'm good at being in front of a video camera. Like I could be a child actor if I wanted. I'm glad that did not end up happening. I do remember there being a moment where my brother got chosen for that short video thing that I mentioned. And I remember thinking like, who does he think he is? Like, I'm the one that's supposed to be good on video. Like, what's my brother? I was like, he has enough going on in his life. This is my thing. Can't you let me have this one thing? And I remember being very distraught over it. But in retrospect, it made no sense if I would have been involved in that. But yeah, I think I enjoyed that aspect. Of course, I think I remember I have selfies that I take on my mom's like iPhone growing up where I'd be like vlogging too and be like, hey guys, to my 0 subscribers. And so I think I naturally gravitated towards doing that type of thing. But I don't know. It became a different thing when it became real and there were people watching. Yeah.
That's such a different way of growing up, isn't it? Like to sort of, I think, the main thing that everyone always says about like, since everyone has like camera phones is that now people grow up just being so much more comfortable with like just looking at themselves all the time and like being presented with photos. Like if I look back at photos when I was a kid, like someone would point like a camera at me and I would just freeze completely because it's like, what are you doing? Like you're just not used to sort of being presented with your own face all the time. Whereas I think like now kids are just, you put a camera in front of a kid and they just automatically sort of do like a perfect like little peace sign pose or something like that. It's really like, I guess that sort of prepped you quite well for now having to do like press shoots and videos and things like that. Was that like something where when you first had to start kind of doing the pop star thing then it kind of came quite naturally?
It did and it didn't. I think it's still weird when I got so used to doing it by myself, I think. So it was like a different adjustment where filming a video or a vlog inside of my bedroom was the easiest thing in the world, and then editing it and whatever, because I'm the only one that's perceiving me physically in that moment. But it took me a long time to get adjusted to doing other things for work, whether that was like a press shoot or whatever, and like posing. That's so mortifying to pose in front of like a team of people behind a camera. But I have gotten used to it over the years, but it's still, there's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, I can't, this is mortifying. Yeah.
Have you got like a go-to move now, like a sort of bend and snap type signature?
Yes. Actually, and I think it's catching up to me because there are like so many photos of me in this like pose where I'll put my arm over my head, and every time without fail, like a photographer will be like, wow, you're really good at this, and I'm like, thanks, I know. and then I look at the photo and I'm like, it's the same freaking photo that I've been taking for years and years at this point. Yeah.
The armpit sniff, the trademark.
Yes. Yeah.
mxmtoon armpit sniff.
Get a whiff. Yeah.
Just get a catch on. Yeah. Just get a whiff of these tunes. I mean, that's like, was he your first sort of celebrity meeting?
I think so. It's a tough call. So the band that I mentioned actually had Billie Joe Armstrong's son in it. And so Billie Joe Armstrong would show up to our gigs, and I thank God I had really zero conception really truly of his impact, I think, on a larger scale, because I would have peed my pants probably at that point. But no, he'd just be standing there. He's watched me sing, not when I'm mxmtoon, but he's watched me sing when I was like 11 years old.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was really crazy.
Like growing up in Oakland, that must like the sort of influence and like shadow of Green Day must be literally everywhere, right? Like, is that something
it was
where
everywhere? It definitely was everywhere, especially when you like go to school with his kids, because it was just like he was there, so everyone would just talk about it constantly. I think at every school auction there'd always be a guitar that he signed for the auction, so it was just like,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, he was inescapable, just always there.
Yeah,
always around.
I mean, also, like, how do you compete with that? Like, that's almost like an unfair advantage if you've got to do like show and tell, and someone's bringing in like, here's like this cool, you know, rock that I found, and then it's like, my dad's in Green Day, so
I brought in my dad, so
yeah,
he is. Yeah.
That was the wonderful mxmtoon. Thank you, Maya, for coming and having a lovely chat with us. Be sure to keep an eye out for the next episode of Before They Knew Better. It is out on Tuesdays, as always. If you give us a like and a subscribe, then it'll come straight to your inbox. There is also the November issue of DIY Magazine that is out right now. It has King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard on the cover. It has Sleater Kinney inside. It's got Idols inside. It's got Jelani Blackman inside, and loads of other great people. Head to www.diymag.com/shop to purchase that. You can also read it online, and remember to give us a like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and we'll see you next week.